Hello and welcome. We're going to look at the basics of differentiation on this video. So firstly, we need to know this basic equation before we do anything. So our basic equation is this: y is equals to xn, and this n can be any value, any real number. Let's start. So in our differentiation, in this formula we'll be asked, we have to differentiate with respect to x. So in that case, this power will come on the front. So n will come on the front, then we have x, and the value of the power, which is n, will be decreased by 1. So our power will be n minus 1. So if when we are given a formula like this, after differentiation we will get something like this. And from the very start, we will see that how we will use this example to get our desired answer. So our very first example is this. Let's say we are given y is equals to x cubed. Now, if you compare with the general formula, you'll see here 3 is basically the n. Now, let's differentiate with respect to x. Now, first, the power will come on the front. So we'll have 3 on the front. Then we will have x. Now, the power is 3. So we have to decrease the power of 3 by 1. 3 minus 1. Now, if you simplify, we'll get something like this. 3 x to the power 3 minus 1 gives us 2. So this is our answer, 3x to the power 2. Now let's look at another example. So here we are doing a slightly different thing. Let's say our expression here is y is equals to 2x cubed. Now I want you to compare this second question with the first question. Basically, the question and both the questions are looking similar, but there is a slight difference. Here the coefficient on front of the equation was 2. Here the coefficient was nothing. Now if nothing is given, we can consider the coefficient as to be 1. Now how will we do this new math? Now just like before, we have to put dy by dx on front. Now dy by dx tells us we are differentiating this equation with respect to x. Now our first job is to take any constant we have and write it on front. Now after doing that, we are left with x cubed. Now we already did a question with x cubed, so we'll do exactly the same thing here. Now we'll bring 3 to the front. Now we'll get 3, and then we'll have x. Now we have to decrease the power of x by 1, so 3 minus 1. Now if you simplify, we'll get 2 into 3 gives us 6, and x 3 minus 1 gives us 2. We'll have 6x squared. So this is our final answer for this question. Now let's look at another question. Now let's say we have y is equals to 10x. Now for this equation, let's say we were asked to differentiate with respect to x again. Now this 10, just like before, 2 was a coefficient. For this question number 3, 10 is a coefficient, so we have to write 10 on front. Now here the power of x is 1 actually, because nothing is given, so we have to assume, or we know, if nothing is given, then the power is 1. So since 1 is a power, so we'll put 1 on front, and then x, and since we're doing differentiation, so the power of x, which is 1, will decrease by 1, so minus 1. Now we are left with 10 x to the power 1 minus 1 gives us 0. Now we know anything to the power 0 is 1. So basically x to the power 0 is 1. Now 10 into 1 gives us 10. Now we can generalize this idea into this, that if we have a constant x, or let's say 10x, we'll end up with 10. If we have 20x, we will end up with 20. If we have 30x, after differentiation, we end up with 30. So basically, if the power of x is 1, then the x will vanish, or x will go away. will be only left with constant. Whatever the constant is, that is our answer after differentiation. Now let's look at some other examples. Now let's say we have a equation where only a simple constant is given. Unlike last time, we don't have any x in this equation. Now we have one. Now just the last example we have seen, writing 1 and writing x to the power 0 is basically the same thing, because anything to the power 0 gives us 1. So instead of 1, we can write x to the power 0 here. Now if you're asked to differentiate this expression again with respect to x, we'll do the same thing we'll be doing for the last few examples. The 4 into, here the power of x is 0, so let's take 0 out, and then x power has to be decreased by 1. So here the power of x is 0, so 0 minus 1. Now 4 into 0 gives us 0, and we know when you have 0 into anything, the answer will always be 0, no matter what the other values are. So here we have 0 into 4 into some expression of x. So no matter what comes, our answer will always be 0. Now we can also generalize this idea into something that if we are given only a constant, then after we differentiate with respect to x, we will get 0 as our answer. So whenever we get a constant, after differentiation, we'll get 0. So we can basically use this idea later on. Now let's look at another example. Here we are given a different equation, a different expression, which is a bit complex and long. So now we are given y is equals to 2x squared minus 6x plus 3. Our first job is to basically dissect or break down it into components. Now, one way of doing this is basically the sign. So our sign will divide the whole equation into components. So basically we have a sign here and a sign here. So this is our first component, and then one sign here and another sign here. So this is our second component, and this is our last component. Now, why we're doing this, breaking down it into components will make our equation simple and our work and calculation easier. Now let's do the same thing we had been doing. So dy divided by dx. Now our very first component is 2x squared. Now 2 is a constant, so we'll put 2 at the beginning. Now x squared, as 2 is the power, so we'll put 2 on front, and then x, and since we know in differentiation the power decreases by 1, so 2 minus 1 is 1. And then we have 6x here. We just saw in a previous example then that if we have something like 6x or minus 6x in this case, our answer after differentiation will be minus 6 only. Then we have a constant 3. We just saw in this example that if we have a constant, our answer will be 0. So after differentiating 3, our answer will be 0. Now writing 0 here or not writing anything is basically the same thing. Now we can simplify our answer. 2 into 2 gives us 4, and x, 4x minus 6. This is our answer. Right. Now let's look at another example. So number 6. We are given an expression similar to this, which is y is equals to 5 plus 4x minus 5x squared. Now, after we differentiate, we get this expression. Now, firstly, we have to break it down into components. Now, this is our first component, this is our second component, and this is our third component. One thing to consider is that this minus sign is part of this component. Now, if we differentiate a component, we'll get 0. We just saw it. So, and just like last example, we are not writing the 0 here. When we differentiate 4x, we'll get 4 only. And then when we differentiate minus 5x squared, we'll get minus 5, because minus 5 is the constant over here. And then we have 2 as the power. So we will have to write 2 into x to the power. Since the power of 2 here is a power of x is 2 here, we have to decrease the power by 1. So x to the power 2 minus 1 gives us 1. So our power will be 1. Now simplifying this expression, we'll get 4 minus 10x. So this is our final answer. Let's look at another example. So let's say we are given y is equals to 1 by x to the power 5. Now if we look at this expression, this looks a lot different from what we were doing up until now. Now this x to the power 5 is in the denominator in this case, and the examples we were looking at, the x expression was on the numerator. Now our first job is to take this x from denominator and put it on the numerator. How will we do that? Now this idea of reciprocal can be used here. So we can write this expression as this, x to the power minus 5. We are just using the basic idea of reciprocal, that if we take an expression, a number, or basically anything from denominator to numerator, the power flips. Now here the power is plus, and when we put it on the numerator, our power will flip to minus. Then when we differentiate, we will basically use this expression. Now here we can use our general idea of differentiation that we have learned. Our power is minus 5, so let's put minus 5 on front, and then the power of x will decrease by 1. So it was minus 5, so minus 5 minus 6 minus 5, and then minus 1, we will get minus 5 x to the power, no, now minus 5 and minus 1 will give us minus 6. This is our answer. From 1 by x to the power 5, after differentiate, we will get minus 5 x to the power minus 6. Another way of writing this is basically taking this minus x to the power minus 6 to x to the power 6. So just like before, when we took x to the power 5 from denominator to numerator, it became minus, and now we're doing exactly the reverse thing, which is taking x to the power minus 6 from numerator and then putting it into denominator. So then it becomes positive. The sign of 6 become plus. So let's look at another math using this idea. So number 8, we'll have this equation, y is equals to 15x plus 6 plus 3 divided by x. So we have to simplify this equation because we have 3 by x. Now for simplification, we'll use the idea we have just seen in the last example. So simplifying this expression will give us 15x plus 6. Now these two numbers, we don't need to simplify anything, they are simplified by itself. Now for this, 3 is a constant, so we'll keep 3 as it is, and then x is in the denominator, we'll put it on the numerator. So x, here the power of x is 1, so here the power of x becomes minus 1. Since it's plus 1, from plus 1 it will change the sign and become minus 1. Now we will continue our differentiation normally as we did previously. So after differentiate, 15x will get 15, and 6 here is a constant, so after differentiation it becomes 0. And now here 3 is a constant, so we'll write 3 on front. We have x to the power minus 1, here the power is minus 1, so let's multiply minus 1 here on the left, and then the power of x is minus 1, so the power of x after differentiation will decrease by 1, so minus 1 minus 1. So after simplifying this equation, we'll get something like this, 15 plus, actually it will be minus because we'll have 3 into minus 1 will give us minus 3, so minus 3 x to the power minus 2, as we have minus 1 and minus 1 here, so it will give us minus 2 as an answer. So this is our final answer. That was it. Thank you for watching.